what's our benefit bill? How many people are claiming benefits? And this we know because, of course, the government actually pays them out. So we can figure that out. In a minute, we're going to come to people in the shadow economy. That's a bit more difficult. But benefits, we certainly know. Well, there's 8 million people on universal credit. There's 6.5 million people on out-of-work benefits. There's 5.4 million people on health-related benefits. Probably not much we can do about that. If you're genuinely properly sick or disabled or something, fine. But, there's potentially something you can do about the other ones. Total Department of Work and Pensions, how many people in total are they paying out for? 20 million people. 20 million people are getting a handout of some sort. That includes pensions as well. 20 million people getting a handout. There's about 35 million people in work. So if you work and you're thinking to yourself, well, hang on, I work all week and yet I can't afford a house. I can't afford myself, let alone children. Why do I work all the time and yet I'm still poor? Well, there's your answer. Because there's 35 million people paying for 20 million people. That's something we need to think about. Then we need to have a look at the ethnic breakdown of all of this. So I've disregarded the census numbers because they're absolute bollocks. And instead, I put together my own table, making assumptions based on the ethnic breakdown that we know from the census, which we can assume is fine for the people who choose to appear on the census, people who actually fill in the census and return to it, and made reasonable assumptions that the people, the missing 10 million, they're not likely to be white British, are they? They're likely to be of immigrant stock, and therefore we can just assume that they break down along the lines of the people that we can actually see coming in, the migrants we can actually see. We just assume that the rest of them, the missing 10 million, are following those same broad patterns. What does that suggest for the state of the country? Well, white British is probably about 50 million people in the UK. So I'm saying there's 80 million people in the country and 50 million of them are white British. Does that accord with what you can see with your own eyes and ears? Does that proportion feel about right to you? Every time you travel into a city centre or London or, anywhere at this point. About 30 million of them are working age. 23 million of them are legitimately employed. Let's assume maybe 1.5 million are in the shadow economy. There will be the bits of that, people doing, takeaway delivery and, what else, working on building sites. Probably not that many, because most of these people, they can get legitimate employment if they want. And legitimate employment, unless it's at the low end, is probably going to pay more. It has advantages at the low end because you can avoid taxes and, you can still claim your benefits and all that kind of stuff. And 5.7 million of them are on benefits of some kind. White other, so basically Eastern Europeaners, and I suppose other Europeaners as well. Interestingly, a higher proportion of them are in working age, because a lot of them come over here just to work and then they do actually go back, because Eastern Europe is improving all the time. There's about 8 million of them. 6 million of them are working age. About 4 million of them are legitimately employed. Again, maybe 1.5 million of them are in the shadow economy. Somehow 500,000 of them end up on benefits. Okay. The Asian population, I'm not talking about Japanese people, who you know what I mean by Asian. Asian has been expanded to mean basically like India and Pakistan and that whole area. On my numbers, there's about 10 to 11 million of them. About 7 million in the working age. Maybe about 3.5 million of them are legitimately employed. About 2.5 million of them are probably in the shadow economy. Again, that feels right. You see lots of people working in these sort of shops and food delivery places and takeaways and whatever. I doubt all of them have got a national insurance number. You know, my local Chinese, it's very good, but they only take cash. Why is it they only take cash? Well, it's because I doubt that everybody who works there is got a national insurance number and is paying the money into a bank. You know, that's not happening. Somehow 500,000 of those are on benefits as well. Black population, bit under 5 million, 4.8 million. About 1.5 million are legitimately employed. You can probably assume about 1 million are in the shadow economy and 500,000 on benefits. And then we've got other, which is another 5 million. 2 million legitimately employed, 1.5 million in the shadow economy, and about 500,000 on benefits. So that gets us to our 80 million. If you're interested in what this looks like in terms of religious breakdown, Christian, probably just under 60% at this point, and I'm using a very broad definition of Christian here. I'm not talking about observant Christians. I'm talking about people who might identify themselves as Christian, and maybe been to church once or twice in their life at least. You know, that's good enough for this. That's about 20 million people in the UK. No religion, again, about another bit under 20 million, slightly less than the Christians, but, you know, decent number of them. What about Muslims? About 10 million of them now. 10 million of them. Much more likely to be on benefits, in fact, significantly so. So the Christians, even though there were 36 million of them, only about 4 million on benefits. The atheists, even though there's only 28 million of them, only 2 million on benefits. But the Muslims, there's 10 million of them, and 2 million of them managed to end up on benefits. Probably about 1.6 million Hindus, about 1 million Sikhs, about 3 million others. You know, that gets us back to our 80 million. So, and again, let me get into my actions. What am I going to do about this? What is my proposed liberal solution to address the issue that the country has been demographically changed for the worst, and we've got a high proportion of people in the shadow economy or more likely just on benefits? It's costing us in terms of crime. It's costing us in terms of the daily rapes. I've had enough. What are my solutions? And again, everything I'm about to lay out is within the liberal framework. It is the option that avoids civil war. That is what I'm trying to do here. I am trying to stop conflict. I can't say before it happens because it's already happening. You know, as David Betts argues, we're already in the early stages of a civil war. We're in the opening stages of it. So I can't say before conflict, but before the conflict gets really bad, this is what I'm going to lay out. And this is, if you do this now, any shitlibs watching, any government types watching, about now is your last opportunity to do this. And if you don't, and I know that you won't, you're going to get civil war instead. Latter part of this decade, or more likely the early part of the 2030s, you're going to get a civil war in this country. And the outcome from that is going to be profoundly illiberal. So listen to me while you can. Okay, what would I do? And what impact would it have? Step 1. We already have food standards. All I'm suggesting is we just apply them. Simple as that. Just apply the existing food standards that are already part of the legal code. You just remove the exemptions for halal and kosher. Get rid of no stun slaughter. It's gone. What would that do? Conservatively, that would cause about 1.2 million Muslims to leave. Out of 10 million. A decent number would just start eating non-halal food. They'd be like, yeah, I'm not going without meat. So they just put up with it. Some of them would go vegetarian, maybe. But some of them, if they're particularly adherent and like their meat, which I can sympathise with, they'd probably go. So you get 1 million people leaving just for that. Stop benefits to people who aren't born in the UK, which is very moderate. I'll tell you about a less moderate possibility in a moment. But yeah, just say we're not going to pay benefits to anybody who wasn't born in the UK. We're in this situation now where 60% of London housing, social housing, is gone to people who weren't born in the UK. We are battery farming unproductive foreigners. So stop benefits to them. You're probably going to get 2.6 million people just leave. 2.6 million. Because we just turn off the immigrant battery farm that we've been operating. What other policies could we put in? Crack down on the legal workers. So this would be something like, a 3 strikes policy. We find an employer, and we say to employers, look, you've got to check that somebody has the legal right to work in the UK. And it's not particularly difficult. You just need to see their passport. Is it a British passport? Yeah, fine. Is it some other passport? Does it have indefinite leave to remain stamped within it? Very easy to check this kind of stuff.
If you would like to see the full version of this premium video, please head over to lotuseaters.com and subscribe to gain full access to all of our premium content.